Hello students, if you look at the syllabus of English Honours Part 1 of TM Bhagalpur University, and if you also look at the syllabus of Semester 2 MA English, you find that students are required to study A Scholar Gipsy by Matthew Arnold. A Scholar Gipsy is a very well-known famous poem by Matthew Arnold, and this poem was written in 1853. Matty, what is an elegy? Elegy is a short poem which expresses or which is written to express uh, death, to express sorrow or lamentation over the loss of something or death of some important persons. Today we are going to examine this famous poem, Scholar Gipsy, as an pastoral elegy. There are two important terms, pastoral and elegy, and I am going to explain these two terms in detail. What is an elegy? Elegy is a short poem, and elegy is written to mourn the death of some near and dear ones. And elegy, there are two very important elegies in English literature. There are two categories of elegies. The first category of elegy is this the person is written over the sorrow is written to express sorrow over the loss of some near and dear ones. Milton's Lycidas, Shelley's Adonis, and this Scholar Gipsy by Matthew Arnold are some of the examples of this kind of elegy. The second kind of elegy is the elegy written in a country churchyard. It's a long poem which expresses the sorrow of the poet over the loss of some general values, loss of over the death of the farmers, the peasants who are buried in the grave. A Scholar Gipsy and Thyrsis, they are the famous elegies by Matthew Arnold. And Arnold was a celebrated elegiac poet. This Scholar Gipsy has been written on the background of a very famous book. The book is Vanity of Dogmatizing by Joseph Glanville. This book was written in 17th century, and it describes the life and times of a very famous scholar. He was a student of University of Oxford. He was a brilliant student. People had very high expectations from him, but he was fed up with the ways of the university. He was fed up with the over intellectualism of this university, and one fine morning he disappeared from his university. People were making all kinds of speculations, but according to one of his friends, he left this university and joined the wandering tribe of gypsies. Gypsies are found all over the world. They are the nomadic community, and it is generally said that gypsies possess an extraordinary knowledge, and through this knowledge one can control the minds of the others. A Scholar Gipsy, he had heard this story, and he also wanted to acquire this extraordinary knowledge, and that is why he gave up his studies, left his university, and joined the wandering tribe of gypsies. What is a pastoral? Pastoral presents the blissful joys of rural life. Pastoral life is dominated by the peasants, the farmers, the shepherds, and a flock of sheep. And the pastoral activities are presented in this kind of poem. What are the pastoral activities? The grazing of the sheep, and feeding, washing of the ship. All these activities are presented in the pastoral activities. So, on the whole, the pastoral poem presents the bliss and beauty of the rural life. Now, in the light of these two important clarifications, I am going to examine this poem, A Scholar Gypsy. A Scholar Gypsy is presented in this poem as an ageless creature. 200 years have already passed when this scholar lived on the campus of the university, and he was well known for his brilliance, for his intellectualism, for his intellectual power. But he disappeared from his university, and he was very much dissatisfied with this strange disease of the modern life, that is the Victorian times. Victorian times were facing a different kind of uh, dilemma and doubt. People were torn with this conflict whether to believe religion or whether to believe science. Uh, Dar- Darwin wrote the book, this Origin of a Species, and this book completely demolished the biblical theory of the origin of the universe. And so people were put on the horns of dilemma whether they should accept science or whether they should continue with their religious beliefs. This, uh, this kind of dilemma uh, puts put the people living during the Victorian people in a quandary, and we find that they had no faith in, no conviction, and Scholar Gypsy has been presented in this poem just as an opposite to this kind of loss of conviction and loss of faith. A Scholar Gypsy symbolizes a person who is devoted to his mission, and he has only one aim, one purpose, one goal in life, and that is why he has been presented here as an imperishable creature. He cannot die. This poem also presents, this poem has been written on the background of the nature. Arnold describes the countryside of the University of Oxford in great detail, quite vividly, and various kinds of plants and flowers have been described here in great detail, and hills and dales and valleys have also been presented here very beautifully, and herbs and shrubs, dark blue baileys, scarlet poppies. They, the description of all these natural objects speak about the perception and close power of observation on the part of Matthew Arnold. Scholar Gypsy is also regarded as a criticism of life. I have already told you that Victorian times faced this dilemma, the dilemma between science and religion, and so people had no single faith and single conviction. And uh, on the one hand, we find that Oxford movement, which was very much popular during the time, uh, it always exhorted people to continue their faith in religion. But on the other hand, the scientific discoveries and especially the writing of the Origin of a Species by Charles Darwin they propagated the origin of this universe. And according to Darwin, people were we have evolved uh, gradually from the single unicellular creatures. And so these two movements during the times uh, of Victorian times put people on the horns of dilemma, and that is why people were, they had no single faith, no single conviction. A Scholar Gypsy has been presented in this poem as a person who is just in contrast to this kind of dilemma and doubt. A scholar gypsy cannot die. 200 years have already passed, but he has been presented as a shadowy figure wandering and roaming in the countryside of the Oxford. People have a very fleeting glimpse of him, and they give some very bare descriptions about his clothes, about his dress, and but nobody has got the full account, full description of his persona. So these are some of the important features. The description of nature in great detail and the ageless personality of Oxford, ageless personality of a scholar gypsy, and especially a tone of melancholy and sadness which pervades the whole poem in this in a scholar gypsy are some of the very important features and characteristics of this uh, poem. So we can find that scholar gypsy is a very beautiful example of pastoral elegy, because the rural life has been presented in great detail, and the poet also expresses his sorrow and sadness over the loss of this important person, the scholar gypsy, and he is looking for a scholar. He is looking for a scholar gypsy. He is very keen to meet him, and we find that on the whole, this is a very beautiful example of pastoral elegy.